Hi, I'm Mike Harrington, and in 2014, I embarked on a health journey resulting in my losing over 200 pounds on my own. Since then, I've been sharing my story and have become an advocate for healthy living. Welcome to Mike Inspires Me, a podcast show about health, wellness, and amazing people to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. By far, one of the most common questions I get when people learn about my 200-pound weight loss is what diet I was on or what diet I am on. And I'm certainly not surprised by that because, let's face it, as you saw in the write-up I did for this podcast, over 45 million people, it's estimated, go on diets every year in the United States and spend approximately $33 billion on weight loss products and fad diets and all kinds of things. Now, let me caveat here, okay? It's a double-edged sword because in some ways it's a good thing that people take charge of their health, okay? We certainly live in a society right now that is struggling with their health from a perspective of the chronic diseases we have, from obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, all these things that are caused by our lifestyle and which largely is impacted by what we eat and what we put into our bodies, substances as well. And yet, you would think that, dieting in some ways, if you step back, at least for folks who, who haven't really taken a step back from it, could appear to be a good thing. Because let's face it, if you see a diet, let's just take the keto diet, and I'm not picking with it, but it's a great diet to talk about because it's one that has persisted to this day. And I have a lot of friends who do it. I've done aspects of it. Years ago, I've done different versions of it. I did Atkins. I did all kinds of different low carb ones. I've done low fat. I've done all kinds of things through the years. But with the keto diet, one of the biggest, two of the biggest issues with it that, that health experts point out is first, they talk about the health risks involved with some of the versions of it, which could involve eating, very unhealthy, fatty and or processed proteins, meats, right? Salami and bacon and all these things. You'll see that a lot in some of these keto diets. Now, there is healthy, quote, in air quotes, keto as well. And I'm not bashing keto. Don't get me wrong. It certainly has been effective for people. And there's a lot of people who've had great success with it. So that leads me to the second sort of, not going to say criticism, but, that experts talk about with keto is the fact that it's hard to sustain. And I can attest to that. And many of the people who I know who've done it can attest to that. And certainly one could argue and say, well, I do keto when, I find that I've gotten healthy again. I've gotten unhealthy. I've started to gain weight. I've started to eat more donuts and bread and pasta. And now I'm seeing it gather up on my waistline. So the podcast here that I'm about to embark upon is going to be highly nuanced because there are a lot of factors here coming into play. So I'm going to speak from my own personal perspective in the struggles and successes and things that I do to explain my thoughts on this being trapped in a diet prison. Now, I don't want to give the impression that I feel like I'm trapped in it, but I have felt that way at times. Okay. Now, the sad part is on a lot of days I can step above all this and say, you know what? I realized that going on a fad diet is probably not the best idea because it's not going to give me the long-term results that I want. In the short term, yes. Let's just say, well, let me give you a real example. So through the years, since I did lose the 200 pounds, it is quite obvious that I didn't sustain all of that I put on weight. Now, some of that weight, and a large part of it actually, was from bodybuilding. So it was lean body mass. And so in rebuilding some of the muscle tissue that I lost when I started weightlifting and eating to build the muscle, I gained weight, and muscle weighs more than fat. And so certainly I bulked out my shoulders, my arms, my chest and all, and these big old legs that I have. But I also put on some fat around the midsection, especially. That's where a lot of us guys put it on, and gals, we tend to put it on there. And that tendency to want to take care of it immediately comes back, especially you think about it. And I get caught in this cycle like everyone else. Winter comes on, holidays come in, start eating kind of, a little more looser with, some of the things, the treats and things, and you put on weight over your midsection. And then spring and summer comes and you're wearing less clothes and it becomes more obvious all the weight you put on. And so then that comes and you're like, well, I'm embarrassed, or somebody makes a comment, which believe it or not, does happen to me because people don't think about how these comments affect us. But I've had people say, oh, it looks like you've put on weight again. And, so that can lead people, especially people like myself, to want to look for the quicker solution. It's like, well, I'll be honest. I'm looking at going back to my job in a few months, and realizing that all of us really have put on weight. I started to think about, well, what can I do in the meantime, especially since I'm now a newly appointed wellness coordinator at my job, wellness champion. I want to, quote, look the part. So it made me take a step back, okay? Because I started thinking about, well, maybe I should do some intermittent fasting, which I like and I've done, and it helps me feel good and kind of, I'm going to put air quotes again, cleanse myself and get a little better. But it also leads me sometimes into disordered eating. And we'll get into that in a little bit, the cycle, the prison that I get caught in. But it also made me question, why am I doing this? And I go back and forth inside my head all the time with aesthetics versus health. How I look, right? My waist circumference to the world and the scale, the one that people judge me, judge others. And, certainly there may be people sitting here. I even had, when I was on Fox 61 in my interview, when I was talking to Stan about it, my interview about that people do and don't feel, like they don't feel like it's a bad thing asking, it's like, asking me about why. But I get it. People want to understand, say, geez, you lost all that weight. Why would you put it back on? Or why, or I've had people do the opposite. I remember when I was pushing myself and somebody said, oh, you've lost even more weight. And so certainly in the role in which I'm in, as a healthy living advocate to the public, I have eyes on me sort of watching and scrutinizing. And number one, let's face it, losing 200 pounds, people are going to wait and see what happens. Okay, so it's been 2014 when I started. It is now 2021, 7 years later. Is Mike going to gain it all back? Right? And now I'll tell you, no way. But it's not a perfect cycle, and I don't want to get into all the details about the pendulum here going from 400 plus pounds. I may have even at some point been 450 pounds down to as far as 194 pounds, which was my lowest adult weight since my transition. But what I want to explain is getting down to there, pushing myself and trying to maintain was pushing me into, I'm going to say, methods that weren't necessarily best for my overall health. And I'm not just talking physical health, but even mental health as well, because it was causing me to really feel bad about myself and judge myself for the way I looked, as opposed to what was really most important was my overall health being, from the science that we measure, right? My blood pressure, my blood sugar, my mental health and all those things. And that's a careful balance for me. And sometimes it feels like a prison, okay? Because on the one hand, being a public figure who is promoting healthy living, people certainly are going to judge me if I look like I've gained weight or if I look like I'm not living up to the part. What I want to tell you is that, first off, it's not a perfect process. It's a process that I'm still exploring and learning about, but it's a process that works for me so far, in that when you look at where I was before, physically, certainly I was in a horrible place at 400 plus pounds, pre-diabetes, high blood pressure with medication, sleep apnea, which is a breathing problem when you go to sleep and where you stop breathing, and it causes a whole host of other issues, health issues. I wore a machine called a CPAP, a continuous positive air pressure machine that, at night, which was very cumbersome, as well as a whole host of other conditions. So that's where I was. And then you look where I am today. Certainly not at the lowest weight that I was, but healthy, much healthier, much happier. And so then you say to yourself, okay, well, Mike, you're not the perfect image of health, but you know what? I'm the perfect image of health for me. Okay. Now, what I do for you is share my information, but my own personal health is for me. I do it for me so that I can be the best for the people who count on me, my family, friends, my job. Okay. And so those things really come down to, am I in the best place to function in this world with what I've got? Okay. Certainly, we can talk all day about genetics or the eating disorder or the mental health issues that I've struggled with that trigger me to typically go to food as comfort as opposed to, handling it in other ways. But the whole point of it is that we live in what we call a diet culture that encourages people to restrict their eating in ways that cause them to push their bodies into a state of losing weight. And you always hear me talk about this. I'm going to put quotes around that, because what is weight? Losing weight for reasons that may not always be health. Now, certainly your doctor may say, I'm going to put you on a diet because you need to lose weight and blah, blah, blah. And, I get that. And I'm not saying those things are a bad thing. In fact, if I hadn't changed what I ate, if I hadn't done some of the diets I had done over the years, I wouldn't have learned a lot of things. But at the end of the day, there had to be a real balance between eating in a way that's going to sustain my health in the best way, and enjoying some of the things that I know may not be best for my health, but make me happy. I've said it many times. If you've listened to my interviews, if you've read stuff, I didn't stop loving cookies, okay? Or whatever, XYZ. But I do realize that I can't have those things all the time because, number one, for me, it will lead me into health conditions, weight, and other things that are bad for me. And what I had to learn to do was find things to supplement and or replace some of those binge eating behaviors so that I could at least sustain my health. But it's hard because I'm constantly under that pressure. I feel like I'm constantly under that watchful, and this is inside of me, but it is also going with things that I've heard or things that people say to me or just my own perception or pressure on myself. But I'm constantly under that pressure to measure myself in a waist circumference and scale. Now, I'm saying that, but honestly, I haven't even weighed myself. Literally do not remember the last time I weighed myself. And I'm refusing to do it because I don't want to get into that cycle. And I'm not saying the scale is a bad thing, and it's a useful tool, much like any of the other tools that we use. But for some people, especially myself and many people who struggle with eating disorders, the scale can be a bad thing. It can be an obsession. It can lead people like us into behaviors that may not necessarily be best for our health. There's a condition called orthorexia, and I'll paraphrase. I'm not going to look it up right now, but orthorexia basically is a condition, a disorder, where a person becomes unhealthily obsessed with their health and diet and exercise. And a person with orthorexia will push themselves either with extreme dieting or fasting or over exercise in order to get themselves what they perceive to be in good shape, right? And some people may do it for health. It doesn't really matter the reason, but what an orthorexia condition is something that tends to be very rigid and in thinking, and it doesn't allow the person to truly ever have that balance between health and happiness. And I think that's the best way to describe it is, and I talk about health and happiness all the time, and health and happiness is not measured on a scale. Health and happiness is not measured with your waist circumference. Okay? You may want to consider things like your blood sugar. I mean, if your diet is contributing to some of the health conditions you're struggling and you don't want to deal with those things, taking medication to treat them is okay for the symptoms, but you really may want to consider the root of it. Now, that may mean you need to change, and that's unfortunate because the word diet and dieting are kind of interchangeable, but they're two different things. But you may want to consider what I talk about, your food intake, and you may want to examine it and say to yourself, I'm really tired of having this health condition, and there are things that I can do to change the health struggles I'm having. So right here, I'm looking at, there's an article here on NPR, and I'm going to just read what it says because I think it's going to phrase exactly what I'm talking about. And this is when you hear me preach about lifestyle medicine. Bad diets, okay, so bad food intake, are responsible for the more deaths than smoking, a global study finds. Poor diet is the leading risk factor from deaths from lifestyle-related issues in the majority of the world, according to new research. About 11 million deaths a year are linked to poor diet around the globe. And I might even say that could be higher. And the reason I say that is, and I've quoted this one before, according to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, over 80% of medical spending, doctor's visits, at least in the United States, and it could be worldwide, but over 80% of these doctor visits are linked to conditions that are rooted in lifestyle. Okay? Now, lifestyle encompasses much more than eating, your food intake, but the largest one, as you see here, is what we eat. And it's probably one of the ones that's more, I'm going to say, simple to control in terms of, okay, you've got choices, but not the easiest to control because of all the other factors in the world that we deal with. Habits. Like me, first thing I want to do, is go right to the food, or advertising and pressure, the world in which we live, because everything, how often do we see we applaud these things that have these extreme foods, deep fried, battered cheeseburgers. And I'm just making stuff up, but you know what I'm talking about, right? We live in this world that applauds that, and then on the other hand, we criticize people because they're getting fat. So we're encouraging people to eat this crap, and then we criticize people because they're fat from it. And so, as I'm concluding here, because I'm coming up on my time, in my experience personally, when it comes to going on diets, of the many that I've been on, and the tendency for me to want to do these things, when I start feeling like the way I'm presenting myself in the world may not be what people perceive as healthy, I start to think about changing my, or going on a short-term diet. Okay, well, I'm just going to do this. I wake up and I snap out of this often because I realize that's not going to be the best for me. What's it going to accomplish? Why should I go through all that only to go back where I was? Maybe I need to really retool and examine the things I'm doing now that are causing me to put on weight. It's certainly, I'm not going to say it's a good thing to put fat on in the body. Okay. But on the other hand, if the diet's going to cause me to lose muscle tissue, if the diet's going to just be water weight, as many of these fad diets do, what's the use? I don't want to lose the muscle tissue that I've worked so hard, the lean tissue. I don't want to push myself into a state that's going to risk my overall health. And the biggest thing is the mental health, because let's face it, who loves going on a restrictive diet and saying no to the things that you enjoy? You sitting there and you're eating your whatever, and you're fooling yourself saying, oh, this substitute for what I used to love is just as good. But you know what? The reality is we sit when we go on diets and we get mad and we get upset and we get frustrated and we feel deprived. Why do that? Why continue to be on this cycle? Why trap yourself in a diet prison? What's the solution? The solution is simple. Take a look at what you're eating and make small modifications here and there that are sustainable. Okay? Example, slowly learn to introduce more fruits and vegetables into your meals. Whole fruits and vegetables. They're good for you. They sustain and nourish your body. They make you feel satisfied. 100 calories of cookies and 100 calories of an avocado are not the same thing. The avocado is going to give you much more good fats and nutrients and a degree of fiber. The cookie tastes good. It makes you feel good. The heck, an avocado tastes great too, for those of you who love them. Now, maybe not the same thing, but the point I'm making with that is when you start to look at things a little differently, when you start to look at the fact that some of these foods that you're eating may not be nourishing your body, they may be giving you pleasure, okay? But when you start to understand that, you may decide to make more food choices, and your taste buds will change. I mean, a lot of us, have gotten to the point that we get our taste buds get used to some of these processed foods, and so then we start eating. It's like it's boring and it's bland to eat, carrots and broccoli and lean chicken or whatever else, right? Boneless, skinless chicken breast or fish. I don't like these things. Well, if you don't like those things, try to find ways in which you can enjoy those things. We'll get into this topic another time. I can do a whole section on how to enjoy your foods, how to spice it up, how to add spice to your life. But the point is, there are options out there so that you don't have to be trapped in this diet prison, this diet cycle that continuously wears away at your overall health and happiness. I hope this podcast has been useful and helpful to you today. If you have any questions for me, have any comments, or if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast show, email me at mike@mikeinspiresme.com. Hope you're doing well. Get out and do something to yourself today, something simple. Take a walk, enjoy an apple, spend time with friends. Focus on you. It's not selfish. It's important that you take care of yourself first so that you can be there for all those that you care about. Take care and stay awesome. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mike Inspires Me podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out some of the past ones you may have missed. For more information on me and my story, go to mikeinspiresme.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Mike Harrington Official and on Twitter at Mike Inspires Me. Stay healthy and stay awesome.